Welcome back to some more fantastic iRacing action here on the National Racing Network. My name is Patrick Byrne. If you're just tuning in for the first time tonight, you missed an absolutely fantastic sprint car show. After this one is over, make sure you go rewatch that broadcast. Side by side for the last 15 laps of the race. Not going to spoil it any more than that. One of the best sprint car shows I have ever seen. Absolutely mind-blowing. But right now, we're at Five Flags Speedways with the iRacing PM18 cars in the TNT Shock Series for a 50-minute feature at this little bullring of a short track, home of the Snowball Derby. I cannot wait for this one to get underway. Little bit of a light field here tonight. Mike Long, first car to set a lap time with a 14.297. Right now we'll look along with the number 16 TWRS painted scheme of West Shire. You will notice just about every car in this field tonight is running a TWRS scheme. Once qualifying gets a little more underway, I'll bring in James Watson to talk a little bit more about why they're doing that. Right now, though, so far, Brian Labarge with the quickest time on the field. Vic Aldrich in the 98, another very similar painted scheme, 51 thousandths of a second shy. Currently, Jason Miller out on the racetrack. James Watson pulling out. So we'll ride along with James Watson. Looks like we're going to have a field of all 10 of identically painted cars. Just a reminder, in the Shock Series, we do have 2-lap average qualifying speed. So this first lap is timed, second lap is timed, we average them together, and that is your lap time. So first lap on the board for Watson, having to check out of the gas was a 14.386, which would be good enough for the 8th position. Now, if the second lap goes a little bit faster, could move him up from that. If it goes a little bit slower, could move him down from that. See what this second lap is for Watson, though. Last lap was a 14.315, so that is going to be good enough for 8th quick. We'll let him pull the car off of the racing surface, and we'll pull him into the booth, let him know what these paint schemes are all about. Hello, Watson. You're up in the NRN broadcast booth. Why don't you let us know why you guys are all running the exact same colored cars and everyone's got the same paint scheme?
Yeah, so a week ago, longtime Team Watson Racing stalwart and former Shock competitor Nate Siefker was involved in a serious car accident, and so he's in stable condition, but he went through the ringer, so he's in good spirits, but it's going to be a while before we see him back in the sim anytime soon. And like I said, when I let the team know what was going on, I said Nate is one of the coolest and one of the most funniest people you will ever come across. He's got that high-strung level of humor and personality that just seems to put everyone at ease. Just always seems to brighten up the room. Like, voice chat is always a blast whenever he's in there and having a meltdown. And he's also one of the best drivers that I've ever seen. So it hit all of us hard when we saw that our brother, our comrade, was in such bad shape after something terrible. So Nate, if you're watching, we're thinking about you, buddy. Got you back, and we love you, man.
Hell yeah, well, we definitely have Nate in our thoughts tonight, hoping we put one of the cars with his paint scheme on it in victory lane tonight, hoping for a speedy recovery for him. I'm seeing that next week's race will likely be postponed, as there will likely be a charity race next Tuesday for him. So great things happening in our small little community, or I guess TWR is not really a small community at all. You're one of the largest communities here at iRacing. You could find your paint schemes all over the iRacing platform. So wishing Nate a very speedy recovery, hoping to see him back in the Shock Series. Hopefully before the end of this season, but definitely next season would be a fantastic thing to see.
Hopefully. Thank you, Pat.
No problem. We'll let you get back to racing, get your mind focused on putting that car on the top spot here tonight. If not yours, one of these other cars with the same paint scheme on it, seeing it through about half or more of the field tonight.
Here's hoping. Brian Labarge is also running a tribute scheme. He just wanted to make a special one.
Oh, yeah, same thing. I believe Naiji Camargo took a bunch of the stickers, kind of applied it on his own paint scheme. So we'll let you get down there, and best of luck tonight.
Cheers. Thank you.
So now we'll try and get the graphics up here if I can learn how to do my job. On the top spot tonight will be Brian Labarge with a quick time of a 14:140. That is going to be in the 8 car on the inside of row number 1. Vic Aldrichs in the 98 will be starting in the 2nd position. Row number 2 will have Simon Fell on the inside and Naiji Camargo starting his outside. Row number 3 has Jason Miller and Michael Long. Row number 4 has our very own Wes Shire in the number 16 machine starting in the 7th position. Watson to his outside, and on the 5th and final row will be Stephen Thompson and Peter Donchak. Like we said before, a little bit of a shallow field here tonight, but some of the best competition you'll see on oval racing side for the open wheel cars. Pace car going to make the dive in the pit lane next time by. Once again, maybe a new bug with iRacing, not turning the lights on for the initial start. So both pace laps with the lights off on the pace car. You can see that NASA scheme of Brian Labarge has the little NASA logo on the front of it, and all of the TWR logos plastered all over the side of it. I won't make fun of the TWRS colors here today. But pace car makes the dive into the pit lane. Brian Labarge gets a very good start off, going to clear the field easily. Might have been a Delaware double file there. Field very quickly gets to single file. Brian Labarge going to be ahead by about 1/10 of a second. As with anything with modern technology, the graphics software decided right now is the optimal moment for an update. So we'll give that a second to boot up, and we can get you timing and scoring on the left side of your screen, as is the normal here on the NASCAR Racing Network. There you see it, fastest lap, Brian Labarge with a 14:355. There's the tower, you can see 48 minutes remaining, and Simon Fell is about 4/10 of a second behind Brian Labarge now, working lap number 6 out of an estimated 2:09 tonight if they can keep it green the entire way through. Looking back in the field, James Watson making his way up through the field very quickly. He is that leading of the TWRS cars, making his way by Naiji Camargo and Wes Shire. Brian Labarge extending his gap now to over half a second, sets the fastest lap of the race once again. That is going to be a 14:196. Naiji Camargo running really high up on the racetrack. Looked like he missed the corner a little bit there, and that allowed Wes Shire to get down on the low side of Naiji. Unfortunately, having the back out of it, they're going to go single file once again. Closest battle on the racing surface right now is going to be this one between Nee Camargo and Wes Shire. Shire sitting there looking to the inside, another little bobble out of Naiji Camargo, almost getting up into that outside retaining wall. Simon Fell now is going to be your fastest car as he tries to close the gap on Brian Labarge. That lap's going to be a 14:195, approaching the qualifying speeds here. Actually, I believe that might be even faster than the pole time tonight. Vic Aldrich now trying to close the gap as well. I wonder if Brian Labarge is saving or if he's just trying to preserve the tires a little bit, or if he's falling back. Currently another close battle on track between Westshire. Mike Long trying to join this fight, getting by Westshire, going to be to the low side of him as they come down the back straightaway, side by side, dead even in the turn number 3. Brian Labarge showing he's still got a whole ton of speed in that car. New quick time out of Brian Labarge. It's going to be a 14:168. So these guys are setting qualifying lap after qualifying lap after qualifying lap. Mike Long and Donchak now fighting for the 8th position. Ooh, a little bit of contact there. Both cars able to get away from it just fine and continue on racing. Lear's working lap number 15 so far. So we're about 4 minutes into this race, so lap time's going by very, very quickly. Estimating 234 laps remaining in this race, so plenty of time before this one ends. Why don't we go on board and take a look at Simon Fell as he tries to close the gap on Brian Labarge. Right now that gap is about 0.8 of a second. You can see just how far ahead Brian Labarge is over Simon Fell. Hard onto the brakes, downshift into the 4th gear, back onto the power. These straightaways not perfectly straight here, getting in the 5th very briefly before having to get on the binders once again to make it through the corner. Not extending the car all the way out to the wall that time. And you can see this track is not smooth by any measure. In fact, in the turns, especially turns 3 and 4, as you'll see as he comes through them right about now, it's not banked the same way through. It's almost like wavy as you go through the banking. Not suited to these open wheel cars, yet they put on a fantastic show here. This is usually a super late model track, famous for the Snowball Derby. On board, follow along now with Jason Miller, the number 3 machine in the 4th position, as he tries to follow behind Vic Aldrich. You can just see how much of the aero wash really slows these cars down. He is considerably closer to Vic than Simon is to Brian. And you can hear just how much more he has to get on the brakes, how many less lights are illuminated on the dash when he gets to the corner, actually extinguishing all of the lights on the dashboard in the midpoint of the corner. Wouldn't be surprised if as these tires start to wear, some of these drivers start to get into the 3rd gear at the apex of these corners. That is just how slow this track is going to get once the tires fall off. Right now, not seeing a whole ton of fall off though. Your leaders all running about 14:290, so still quicker than your pole time here tonight. Or quicker than I guess your 5th place qualifying time tonight. Fantastic strength of field though. Seeing an average of about 28 to 2,900, so these are 10 of the absolute best drivers on the iRacing service. As we look on with the Get Well Soon Nate Siefker, number 8 machine of Brian Labarge, still putting on an absolute school here tonight, almost extending the gap to over a full second, and there he does it coming across the line that time, put a full second on Simon Fell in the 2nd position. Starting to wonder if this is going to be a 1 or 2 stop race tonight. Stephen C. Thompson, unfortunately the first car bowing out of this one, currently 5 laps down, probably contact with the wall or something having to damage that car and putting him in the pits. He's been in the pits for the last 6 laps now. It has actually quit counting his time in the box, so I believe he has pulled that car off of the racing surface completely. Race control checking in, saying car number 24 has apparently retired, so unsure what happened to the number 24 machine. Brian Labarge extending his gap over Simon Fell to over 1.5 seconds now. Currently, closest battle on the racetrack is still going to be between Naiji Camargo and Wes Shire. That gap is about 0.4 seconds. We can go back, actually look at battle for the 8th position. This is between Mike Long and Peter Donchak. Mike Long in that blue number 21 machine, Donchak in the green and black number 13. Not seeing Brian Labarge in frame yet, so not having to worry about lap traffic just yet, and these cars are not in danger of going down a lap just yet. But with about 40 minutes remaining, we've done 10 minutes in this race so far, and already 42 laps completed. Side by side down the back straightaway now in the turn number 3. Donchak on the inside, Long on the outside, still side by side coming across the line. Give that one to Michael Long. Still holding on to the 8th position, but not for long. Donchak able to clear him coming off of turn number 2. As we look, there is a battle brewing for the 3rd position to get on the podium. That is going to be between Vic Aldrich in the number 98 and Jason Miller in the number 3. We'll take a look from the gyro cam of Jason Miller. See if he can get anything done on Vic Aldrich here. Aldrich, you can see him yawing the car out just a little bit. So, not enough to put counter steer in the car, but you can definitely see the back end of that machine sliding around just a little bit. And Miller has closed this gap down to about 1/4 second. Aldrich extending the gap now to about 3.5 seconds. So pretty even fight between these guys. Hopefully Miller's able to close the gap a little bit and get side by side and give a little bit of action and see what's going to happen between these two cars. Shake up the podium a little bit. Miller running a little bit of a lower line than Aldrich, you can see. Just trying to get a little bit of air on that nose. Aldrich trying to block off a little bit of the line. Sliding up the racetrack, though. Gap is now down to less than 0.2 seconds. When is Miller going to make his move? He can't sit behind the gearbox forever, as actually Aldrich is into the wall a little bit. And Miller was able to get by Jason Aldrich. I'm going to start to run away from him now. That gap is now up to about 0.3 seconds as we have a fight going on for the 6th position. That's going to be between Naiji Camargo and Wes Shire. Right as we put the camera on them, though, they seem to settle down and go right back to single file. Naiji sliding up the racetrack a little bit. He's going to try and get around teammate James Watson there in the number 39 machine. See an identical car to Wes Shire. Naiji running a very different line to the two TWRS cars, or the two Get Well Soon Nate cars. Naiji also running a logo on the front of his car just above the number on the nose cone there. You can see how much closer he's willing to get to that outside retaining wall out of turns number 2 and 4. Running about a groove higher on exit. Feel free to check into the comments at any point tonight, and just remember, you can always send all of your hate mail to bizzle@nationalracingnetwork.com. That is BIZZLE at nationalracingnetwork.com. We will take all of your hate mail. I go through it all personally. I will send you a handwritten note, give you a support ticket, and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. So please feel free to send anything you need there. It gets forwarded right to my inbox. Whether you love the show, hate the show, you can send it there or put it in the comments of this video right here. As it looks like Naiji was able to get by Wes Shire, as now we have all 3 of the identically painted cars and Naiji's in one little pack here, battling for the 4th position. Naiji's going to be side by side with the 98 for 4th, Shire and Watson side by side right behind them. No cars a lap down just yet. Leader Brian Labarge working lap number 65. Still an estimated 209 laps to finish. Still, you can see Naiji Camargo battling side by side with Wes Shire now. So not able to get anything done on Aldrich, and Shire actually able to peek out in front of Camargo. Shire now going to try and get the run down the backstretch. That is Shire's car on the top side, Aldrich's car on the bottom side, exiting turn number 4. They're going to be side by side, and that lap you can give to Shire. Naiji now going to be battling side by side with Aldrich. Aldrich's going to have to check up. They're going to be single file once again. So it's Shire, Aldrich, or excuse me, Shire, Camargo, Aldrich, and then James Watson there in the frame, and then that's 5th car back there, that is going to be the number 13 machine of Donchak. And it looks like Aldrich is pulling off, going to be pulling into the pit lane here. Possibly for some damage repair, possibly just for tires. See what happens when he gets into the pit box. So he will be your first car going 1 lap down. Car not going up. Oh, it does go up on the jacks, just tires and fuel. So looking to be a 2-stop race for Vic Aldrich here tonight. Leader Brian Labarge not diving into the pits just yet. About 33 minutes remaining in this race. He's completed 72 laps. Can he make it to the halfway point? So So it looks like you're going to lose about 2 laps by going into the pits under green. So Vic Aldrich very much in the danger zone. If the caution were to come out, there's no way he can recover from that. You can recover 1 lap by everyone pitting and getting the way around, but you cannot recover 2. So going to have to hope for a full cycle of green flag cautions if I was Vic Aldrich. As lap times are slowing down now, last lap for Brian Labarge was a 14.457. The lap estimator is bouncing back between 209 and 207 laps completed in this one. I'm sure it'll go down to about 200 after the pit cycles. As in the Shock Series, we do timed races. We don't do lap-based races. All of the races are 50 minutes, with the exception of the Super Speedway races, which are occasionally broken up in the 2 20-minute heat races. Brian Labarge working on some lap traffic now, though. That is going to be the number 39 car of James Watson. He's going to try and put a lap down here. Easily able to get to the bottom side of that car in the turn number 3. Not quite able to get the move done, though. Now going to be side by side down the front straightaway. Watson not quite a lap down just yet. It's going to really make Brian Labarge have to fight for it. But that fight is going to end very, very quickly. Labarge easily clear of Watson now. Watson going to be very securely 1 lap down. Vic Aldrich on the fresh rubber, not quite able to get up to some crazy lap times. Although the last lap for Labarge was a 14.704. Last lap for Aldrich was a 14.310. So possibly going to be able to take himself back to just 1 lap down. As Simon Fell now working on the lap traffic of James Watson. Again, Watson not making himself very easy to put a lap down. And frankly, playing the Ryan Newman of the field. Ryan Newman, and more importantly, the foundation Driven to Save Lives is one of the sponsors of NRN. Fortunately, on my machine, I do not have the ads set up to play. As we build the Ohio headquarters for National Racing Network further, hopefully that is something that becomes in our capabilities, but do want to give them a shout out over the air and thank them very much for that. Team Watson Racing setups, those we'll call them purple, green, and yellow, although those are not the official names of the colors. They are one of our sponsors as well, so I'd like to give them a shout out too. Under half an hour remaining in the 50-minute feature here at Five Flags Speedway for the TNT Shock Series. Brian Labarge still your leader. Simon Fell still second. Jason Miller makes his way up to 3rd position, and Wes Shire currently in the 4th position. Naiji Camargo rounding out your top 5. Peter Donchak currently in the 6th position. James Watson, first car, 1 lap down in 7th. Mike Long in 8th. And Vic Aldrich making that early pit stop, going to be 2 laps down. Taking a look at Vic Aldrich in that number 98 machine on the front straightaway. So not going to be very far behind Brian Labarge. Only about half a track. So definitely making some time up. Currently in lap traffic, slowing him down a little bit. His lap times there are just about even with Brian Labarge right now. In fact, last lap for Brian Labarge was faster at a 14.342. Last lap for Aldrich, we'll watch him as he comes across the line. That was a 14.621. So Brian Labarge still going faster than Aldrich. Aldrich needs to get around this lap traffic if he wants any prayer of getting himself back to just 1 lap down. James Watson diving down the pit lane, now going to be 2 laps down. And Vic Aldrich able to get by Watson. Splash of fuel, some tires, and back onto the racing surface. He's going to go 3 laps down. So unfortunately, James Watson going to be in last place right now. It is not over yet, though, as your lead lap cars are going to need to come into the pits. Keeping in mind that they're not quite at halfway, so I'm not sure if they're going for 2-stop strategy or they knew that was the earliest point they can pit. to keep it a one-stop race. As we look back with the number 8 machine of Brian Labarge, Simon Fell closing the gap down to about 3/4 of a second. Brian Labarge did have it well over 2 seconds earlier this race. I wonder if he's saving a whole bunch of fuel, trying to push it if it's going to be real close on the one-stopper here tonight. So currently, Naiji Camargo is your first car 1 lap down. We do have a lucky dog here in the TNT Shock Series, so Naiji Camargo would be in the lucky dog position if the caution were to come out now. The lucky dog is as lucky as you could possibly be. No matter what, you start at the tail end of all of the lead lap cars, which means whether or not you pit, you're going to be in the same spot anyway. So it is a free, no consequences pit stop. Frankly, you can't ask for anything more as a crew chief to have the decision pretty much made for you. You don't have to think, don't have to do any math. You just got to go, car could use tires. We'll pull down in the pits. We'll take the tires. As Brian Labarge is now putting Wes Shire 1 lap down. So Wes Shire in the 4th position is going to be your lucky dog if the caution were to come out. Brian Labarge still not coming to the pits. Only 44 seconds remaining until they reach the halfway point of the race. So almost definitely going to be a one-stop race for Brian Labarge here. Jason Miller not too far ahead either. You can see him at the end of the straightaway there. So Brian Labarge possibly going to put every car except himself and Simon Fell 1 lap down. Simon Fell diving into the pits now as they approach the halfway point of this race. Currently 103 laps complete. And now here we go with almost exactly 25 minutes remaining. Brian Labarge is going to pull in the pits as well as Wes Shire. So Jason Miller, as he comes around, will take the top spot, not coming into the pits this lap. Oh, and he gets into the outside wall. So Jason Miller is almost definitely going to be, or is going to be your leader now. But almost definitely has some damage on that right front corner of the car. See what the last lap is for Jason Miller. That's going to be a 14.957. So that car not going anywhere near as fast as it was before. Putting both Brian Labarge and Simon Fell a lap down, and Simon Fell actually coming out of the pits ahead of Brian Labarge. So Simon Fell is going to be your new race leader as he comes around. Still going to be 1 lap down, or unlapping himself right there as he comes around the next time. He will pass Jason Miller and take over the top spot. Absolutely fantastic call on the short pit here tonight by Simon Fell. You'll see that is the number 16 of Wes Shire right in front of Simon. So Shire currently on the lead lap. As soon as Simon gets by Shire, though, Shire will be the first car 1 lap down in that lucky dog position. But it's not going to be as easy as both of these cars are on fresh tires. Seeing a black flag for Mike Long as he pulls in the pits again, I believe just for a drive-through this time. Or no, he is in the box. So probably a speeding on pit entry and unfortunately stuck in the box for a very long time. 20 seconds and counting. So this is going to be a 30-second stop and hold. Currently Mike Long 2 laps down, now 3 laps down. In the box still, clock counting over 30 seconds. $40 seconds in the box for Mike Long, so a very, very, very lengthy pit stop. Out of the box, 46.7 seconds, a full minute in the pits between pit entry and pit exit. Very, very costly, going to be 4 laps down. Brian Labarge, though, giving us something to watch here. Oh, as Mike Long coming into the pits yet again. Unfortunate for him. Brian Labarge, however, right on the rear gearbox of Simon Fell, making this a very, very interesting race as we get into the closing 20 minutes. Working their way through some lap traffic now. They do get by Mike Long that time. Mike Long now 7 laps down. It's a very unfortunate penalty for Mike Long, going to put him out of contention for just about everything except maybe some positions due to attrition if we do end up getting a caution in this race. As we'll look along from the gyro cam of Brian Labarge, as he tries to fight around and find a way by the yellow 256 of Simon Fell. Very briefly grabbing the chip before shifting into the 5th gear, back down to the 4th through the corner. That is still going to be Wes Shire in front of these cars. Actually, I believe that is the 39 of James Watson there in front of him. You can tell by the very fluorescently colored yellow wheels on them. All 3 of those cars having different colored wheels. Watson, I believe, has the yellow wheels. Shire on the top side there. Or excuse me, that is Vic Aldrich in the 98 with the fluorescent yellow wheels. So they're going to go to get around Aldrich with the white wheel number 98. Fluorescent yellow wheels, that might be Shire up there. These drivers, unfortunately, did not give me a briefing on what the differences between the cars would be. They just kind of threw me in here and said, all of us are running the same scheme. As we have now broken into 20 minutes remaining in tonight's 50-minute feature at the Five Flags Speedway. These cars now side by side. Brian Labarge going for the pass on the inside of Simon Fell. Not going to be clear just yet, though. Still side by side in the turn number 3. Finally clear. Will Simon Fell be able to get the crossover, though? Not quite. Simon Fell is going to slot in right behind the 8 machine of Brian Labarge now. So we take a look from the overhead camera mounted on our NRN blimp circling the racing surface. You can see just how far apart Brian Labarge has gotten from Simon Fell. There is absolutely no competition right now. Currently a battle going on for the 5th position, though, and that's going to be between the lap-down cars of James Watson and Naiji Camargo. Camargo going to be looking to the inside here in turn number 1. Not quite able to get anything happening, though. Going to slot right back in line down the back straightaway. Very quickly approaching turn number 3. Still going to be right there. And Peter Donchak also in this fight. Camargo finally getting to the inside of Watson. Going to be side by side now. Very clear and easy for Camargo. And now Watson has to fight with the number 13 car of Peter Donchak. Watson has to back out of it. And Donchak is going to get the 6th position. So I figured out the difference between the cars. Watson has white wheels and yellow letters. Aldrich has white wheels and white numbers. And Shire has white numbers and yellow wheels. If you can remember that, great. I might need to write this down, but with only 17 minutes remaining in this race, as long as they don't do it to me next week, I think we'll be alright. As we look at the beautiful sunset here at Five Flags Speedway, very quickly becoming a night race here. Just over 16 minutes remaining. Still, the estimator is at about 209 laps. Brian Labarge extending the gap over Simon Fell to well over a second now. It's about a second and 2/10, so call it a second and a quarter. Jason Miller, 9/10 of a second, or 9 full seconds, almost 10 full seconds behind leader Brian Labarge. Only 4 cars on the lead lap, and you can see at the right side of the frame here, entering turn number 1, that is West Shire. So they're going to put all but the podium a lap down here at the rate they're going. Shouldn't see any more pit stops out of anyone in the field, as they were all able to pit right about at the halfway point. So unless someone really missed the mark, forgot to put fuel in the car or something, shouldn't need to see any more stops. So this is the Brian Labarge show. As long as he doesn't make any mistakes, doesn't drive the tires off it, and allow Simon Fell to close that gap. But Simon is closing the gap ever so slightly. Gap now down just about 1 second even. Leader Brian Labarge working lap number 145. So a very, very long race to go around here. These short tracks are absolutely excruciating in these cars when you're driving them, especially if you're on a direct drive wheel or even just one of the higher end belt drive wheels. They can put out a lot of force still, and it's a full-on workout. If you don't have the AC on, a fan cranking on you, something, especially if you're in VR, you can definitely break a sweat doing this. At least that's what I used to tell my girlfriend. It's exercise. Don't worry. I don't have to go to the gym. Simon Fell closing the gap now under 3/4 of a second. You can see him there just in the back portion of the frame. Call it about 5 or 6 car lengths. So definitely getting within draft range now of Brian Labarge. Still the better part of a straightaway separating these cars too. Yeah, and Brian Labarge opening the gap up just a little bit. Last lap for Brian Labarge was a 14.243. Last lap for Simon Fell was a 13.454. Oh, big wiggle there for Brian Labarge. Able to save the car, but Simon Fell going to get to the inside, and he's going to get by Brian very easily. Brian not able to put up a fight to defend the position. He's going to have to put a fight on the offensive, though. Going to be to the inside of Simon Fell now. I gave him the commentator's curse. I said it was the Brian Labarge, so as long as he doesn't make a mistake, burn the tires off it. And You saw it right there. That was a pretty major mistake. Not any contact with anything, able to save the car, but definitely got it very loose, had to get on the binders, and gave up every advantage he had. Going to have to play offense now and try everything he can to get by by Simon Fell with only about 12 minutes remaining in this race. Last lap for Simon Fell was a 14.371. Last lap for Labarge was a 14.333. So Labarge setting slightly faster laps. But you can copy everything the driver in front of you is doing. You still have to find a way around him. You got to do something different. You got to hope for them to make a mistake or force them into a mistake. Gap now under 0.2 of a second. Now that the Penske Perfect secret has been revealed, I'm thinking Brian Labarge is hoping he can find a little bit of Penske Perfect in that thing. Maybe a hidden push the pass button for a little bit of that extra squeeze of horsepower to get by Simon Fell here. Gap now opening up to about 0.3 of a second. Last lap for Labarge was a 14.322, so very consistent, hitting the same number 2 laps in a row. Simon Fell now breaking into the 14.375, so actually a little bit slower yet that time. That time Brian Labarge faster than Simon Fell by about 1/10 of a second, closing the gap right as I'm saying he's going a little bit slower. So maybe he has found that Penske Perfect button. Race Control M. McCullen checking in the broadcaster text chat here, saying she will not tolerate push-to-pass shenanigans. It is the title, the status, if you will, of the Race Control booth. So definitely going to have to put that number 8 machine into kind of scrutineering after this race, especially if he finds a little bit of extra horsepower and gets by Simon Fell, as there's now less than 10 minutes remaining in this race. Brian Labarge now making the attack on the inside of Simon Fell, side by side down the back straightaway. Dead heat drag racing the turn number 3. Still side by side, dead even. I believe Labarge is clear, and yes, he is. Simon Fell looking to the inside now, not able to make a charge or a fight back. So Brian Labarge now back in the lead, fully recovered from his mistake. All he's got to do is hope he can extend the gap back to what it was. Race Control possibly inciting violence in the broadcast text chat. Not sure who she wants to punt, or who wants who to punt to who. But I think she wants someone to get punted here. Possibly the lap car of Mike Long, now going 8 laps down. Possibly wanting Brian Labarge to punt him out of the way. Unfortunately not going to happen here, as they get by him very cleanly. I believe I called it sunset earlier. Looks like it was actually sunrise, as it is now almost completely daytime here at Five Flags Speedway. Brian Labarge extending the gap over half a second now All he's got to do is put down the exact same laps he's running right now. So M. McCollum letting me know in sim time is 5:34 a.m. That is because this is not Lime Rock Park. This is Florida. There are no rules. There are no curfews. So we can race at 4 to 5 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I believe the saying goes, because something, that's why. You can substitute something with whatever your imagination desires. Cannot say it on air. Currently, Brian Labarge working lap number 180, 6.5 minutes remaining in this 50-minute long feature at Five Flags Speedway for the TNT Shock Series. Simon Fell closing the gap just a little bit. Both cars running nearly identical lap times within about 20 thousandths of a second. So no one gaining or losing any time here. Kind of just doing exactly what they need to finish right where they are. Simon Fell almost getting into the wall off of 4 there. That lap going to be considerably slower at a 14.683, about a full tenth slower than Brian Labarge. And you can see it in timing and scoring. That gap is now down to about 0.6 of a second. Working the final 5 minutes now. This is go time if your name is Simon Fell. Put everything you got. Only a 10-car field, so the worst you could finish here, it's probably 9th, since Stephen Thompson bowed out of this one really early. So I say go for broke. Give it everything you got. Push it to about 1 millimeter of that outside wall and see if you can get by Brian Labarge. If you can't, you finish 2nd. If you hit the wall, you finish 9th. Still a good day to me. Race Control letting us know it is the final 5 minutes, so the short yellow procedure is in effect. So Naiji Camargo will no longer get the lucky dog. There will be no wave arounds. It'll be 1 lap of pacing. Lights will go out on the pace car. Be another lap of pacing, and we go right back to green. So 2 full laps total of pace car around here, instead of the 5 to 10 minute run around they typically like to do. Simon Fell might be listening to us here in the booth. He's closed that gap now down to about 3/8 of a second. If you don't understand fractions, that is about 3.5 tenths of a second. But that gap quickly extending right back now to 3/4 of a second. So Simon Fell falling off a little bit from Brian Labarge as we're in the final 2.5 minutes. It's going to be the lap car of Peter Donchak you see in the front of your frame. is going to be the next car on the list for Brian Labarge to pass. Peter Donchak currently only 1 lap down, 2 laps ahead of Vic Aldrich in the 7th position. Oh, as Labarge looks like he almost bounced off of the wall there. Needs to avoid those kind of mistakes. With a gap of almost a full second over Simon Felt, really just got to dial it back down, easily getting by the number 13 machine of Donchak. So dial it down to about 90% and just ride around this racetrack for another 2 minutes. Brian Labarge extending the gap now over a second, losing about 2/10 in turn number 4, now working lap number 200. Simon Fell now having to contend with the lap traffic, easily gets underneath the 13 car of Donchak, but he does lose a little bit of time there. That gap now about not a full tenth, we'll call it a full second. And this is your closest battle on the racetrack right now. Brian Labarge has the car on autopilot now. You can see him not getting all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, not letting the car drift all the way to the outside wall, just kind of keeping it right in the middle on those painted lanes you see on the racetrack. Not seeing a white flag just yet. This might be the white flag lap, though. And yep, there it is. There is the checkered flag. Brian Labarge going to come home very easily the winner, having the car on autopilot all night. Put it on the top spot on the pole in qualifying. Kept it there just about the entire race. Only had one little hiccup where Simon Fell got by when he had to get on the binders, save the car from spinning. But was able to recover pretty easily from it, going to burn the house down now. Still showing everyone he had life left in those tires. Doing the old Chad Canal, smack the car against that outside safer barrier. Unfortunately, if that car does have an illegal push-to-pass system, no amount of crashing will hide that. But if there was anything illegal in the rear suspension of that car that is so far bent out of shape after smacking the wall like that, we'll never find it. And there it is. Race Control M. McCullen asking for car number 8 ECU to race control. So unofficially, Brian Labarge is the winner. Considering this is a sim race, Brian Labarge will still probably be the winner afterwards. As I don't believe that is a Penske machine there. But Brian Labarge going to come home your winner. Brian Labarge out of Connecticut in the number 8 machine, completing 206 laps here at Five Flags. Simon Fell out of California in the number 256, going to be your second place car. And Jason Miller finishing in third. Wes Shire somehow finishing on the lead lap. Was a lap down earlier in the race in the pit cycle, able to get himself back on the lead lap. We'll round out your lead lap cars in the 4th position. Naiji Camargo out of Brazil, coming home in the 5th position, 1 lap down. Peter Donchak finishing 6th, Vic Aldrich 7th, James Watson 9th, Mike Long ninth, Watson 8th, Alder 7th, and Steven C. Thompson bowing out very early, only completing 28 laps tonight, finishing in the 10th position. And first up, we will bring in second place finishing car, Simon Fell. Simon, absolute autopilot here tonight. Didn't quite get the win. It looked very close there at the end, especially when Brian had that bobble. How was the heart rate when that happened?
Yeah, that was pretty scary. I was like, ah! But he did a great save. And Brian had some great pace. Even though I got in front of him a couple of times, he still made it right back past me and then drove off.
Yeah, that car absolutely on autopilot. I was seeing right after the green flag dropped, or during the qualifying session, looked like some stuff in the U.S. Open Wheel chat from Tyler Stover about discovering something fun with the shock settings. Almost wondering if Brian Labarge figured that out earlier tonight and setting some really quick laps here.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, why don't we get some of your sponsor plugs, thank yous in. It was a really long race. I'm sure it was excruciating with 206 laps completed tonight.
Yeah, my shoulder's killing me. I'm going to know about it in the morning.
Oh, boy.
I need to get sponsored by Bengay.
There you go. Bengay, Advil, one of them. Maybe even Goody's Fast Headache Relief. That might work, too.
Yep, any of those will do.
Well, we'll let you get out of here. Get some rest. It's still a little early in California, but probably want to get off the bed during the week. So you have a fantastic night, and hopefully we're talking to you next week.
Cheers.
So next up, we'll bring in third place car, Jason Miller. Possibly, we'll call him the winner out of the P2 cars, as those top two were absolutely on autopilot tonight. You did have to fight for your third place finish here a little bit. What was it like out there, man? 206 laps around this place in 50 minutes. It must have been absolutely brutal.
I'm glad I turned the force feedback down on my wheel before the race started, because that was a lot of work.
Yeah, a very bumpy racing surface here at Five Flags. This track famous for its modified racing, especially famous for its super late model racing. Not so much these little tiny open wheel cars. These things have to be getting thrown around this track.
Yeah, they are, especially the bump on the front stretch that really throws you off going into turn one. But it's a lot of fun with the cars, even if you aren't going as fast as we do on some of the tracks.
Yeah, a lot of drivers complaining about that bump in the pre-race, in the qualifying session, somehow able to go clean and green the entire way through this race. I don't believe there were any incident points on the board at all. Steven C. Thompson couldn't figure out why he backed out, but not an incident on his car either.
Yeah, I was wondering about him. I almost caught James at the end. He got a little sideways coming out of turn 4, and I almost got into him with my front wing, but thankfully avoided that. I was not expecting a totally green race, but I guess with unfortunately only 10 cars, it helps.
Yeah, it turned into a fuel mileage race, turned into a strategy race, and it was fun from that end. Not so much side-by-side action, but still a very fun race nonetheless.
Yeah, it was. I was worried Wes was going to be catching me at the end, and I don't know if some lap traffic kept the gap there, but yeah, I was trying to conserve tires because I knew that they were important. I think I finished the first stint with 25% left. So.
Oh man, not a whole lot of rubber left on those, but why don't we get some of your sponsor plugs, thank yous in for tonight?
Yeah, just I guess PPG with extra push to pass this week helped out. Otherwise, thank you guys for putting on the broadcast. Appreciate everybody coming out. It's a fun league.
No problem. Race Control was asking for Car 8 ECU to Race Control. I think you just incriminated yourself, and I believe we'll be taking car number 3 ECU to Race Control as well. So why don't you get yourself back in the pit, start unbolting that, and getting that ready to go over to M. McCullen. Didn't mean to cut him off there, but finally we will bring in race winner Brian Labarge. Now, Brian, unfortunately, M. McCullen is requesting your ECU to Race Control. We're wondering about some push-to-pass shenanigans here for tonight. Jason Miller was admitting that his PPG Paint Schemes number 3 machine did have some push-to-pass shenanigans going on, so obviously it is possible here in the PM18 cars, and unfortunately your car is going to go through some extra scrutineering tonight. Was that the reason behind your win here?
If by push to pass you mean the accelerator pedal, then absolutely.
You do have to push that to pass cars, yes.
Yes, that is correct, and that was my method in which to do so this evening.
So why was your car so much faster than everyone else? It looked like you were on autopilot for the entire race, except for your little bobble you had there. Did you figure out something wonky with the setup? Find something with the dampers?
No, I mean, it's pretty much the exact same setup I ran last week. With, I think there was just one minor change. I don't even remember what it was, but it wasn't significant. Like, it wasn't like I had to, different track, completely different. I was like, well, whatever worked last week seemed to work, so I'm going to try that again. But yeah, I mean, towards the end, I think I screwed up my my fuel number. So, that bobble that I had there and any sort of, pace that I had, I mean, I was actually very, very worried I was not going to make it to the end just because I was going to run out of fuel. So there was a significant amount of lifting and coasting, and that one little bobble there, that was me experimenting with trying to find new marks for lifting and coasting.
Oh, man. I was going to say, because you stopped exactly dead on the halfway point. So I was figuring you just filled her back up with fuel and knew you were good to the end. But I guess trying to save as much time as possible. Simon did beat you out of the pit, so definitely making every ounce of fuel count.
Yeah, and even that, I mean, that was not a great pit stop. I was slow on pit in. I almost missed my mark. I was really cautious about me. I didn't want to go too fast. I'm like, you know what? Let's just go with it. And it turns out that, I came out and I was like, what? Pretty much a second, or I was behind him, but I had given up, what is it? It's like a second and a half or whatever it was. So it was a terrible pit stop.
You did not, actually. You lost it all on the on just the short pit and him taking the fresher tires earlier. Your total time in pit lane from the yellow cone to the green cone was 26.5 seconds. For Simon Fell, it was 26.9 seconds. So your total time in pit lane was actually about 0.4 of a second faster than Simon's was. It was just all on the tires, yeah.
Oh, okay. I felt like it was a terrible stop, so I wasn't really surprised when I came out. I'm like, well, all right, well, now I gotta
your stop
back on the loud pedal.
Was slower than the rest. Fastest stop of the race does go to Naiji Camargo. He had a 6.4 in the box. You were 7.4 in the box. So definitely not a fast pit stop, but total time in pit lane, you were faster than Simon Fell. Not the fastest, but you were one of the quicker ones.
All right, well, I'll take it. Thanks for the positivity there.
Well, you won the race. I mean, how negative can I be?
Exactly. I'll take it. Thank you.
Why don't we get some of your sponsor plugs and thank yous in, man?
All right. Well, first off, most importantly, you may have noticed a livery change in honor of Nate Siefker. So get well, buddy. We're all rooting for you. So as a member of our TWR team, so got to thank TWR as well for letting me be a part of everything and the racers and everything else. Obviously, NASA and JPL are they'll be returning to the car at some point, but for right now, it's a little bit more important that we give Nate some love.
Hell yeah! Hoping for a very speedy recovery for Nate. Not too speedy,
Absolutely.
Making sure he gets all of the care that he needs. Hoping to make a full recovery for him in stable condition. It's all the details we know. That's all the details we'll share with you. But we'll see him back on track. Hopefully, maybe not at the end of this season, but hopefully before next season will be fantastic. But we'll let Brian get out of the booth here. It was really cool to see some of those cars on the track. Definitely cool to get one in victory lane. That is going to be it, however, for us tonight in the NRN broadcast booth. A fantastic Tuesday night of racing, and hopefully we see you all again for the U.S. Open Wheel Officials. Coming at you should be 9 p.m. on Thursday night. Hopefully Chris will be back. Had a little mishap at work today. Got to work, and there was no ice on the hockey rink, and unfortunately that is very important for playing hockey. So working the long night tonight trying to get some ice back on the rink for tomorrow's games. That is it for me, Patrick Byrne, the National Race Network, and we will catch you next time. Thank you very much for coming out.